get that able to change on now. As you can see, I've got to do remove these M10 drive. So anyway, let's get it set. Good morning, you handsome lot. It is Happy Hump Day. It is Wednesday, and we've got a 2017 Vauxhall Astra 1.6 CDTI Ecoflex in 4. It was booked in for a timing chain, but it's sounding absolutely horrific. I'll just put the camera now by it so you can have a little bit of a listen before we start. That ain't sounding the best, is it? Right, let's make a start and get it stripped down. Now, before we do anything to this vehicle, the first thing that we need to do is go underneath the steering column here and undo that pinch bolt and get that steering column off. Because if you haven't seen my videos by now, this is a massive job where we've got to take a subframe off. And don't forget to put your seatbelt through the steering wheel, because you will be starting this vehicle with a subframe off. Right, let's get involved. What we need to do, first things first, is disconnect the battery which is in the boot. We've got to remove all this intake down here, intake motor flap, EGR valve which is at the side of the engine, the rocker cover, injectors. It is quite a big job. Now, when you're removing these injectors, these plastic spill pipe, they do snap. So price them into the job. Right, now that is that rocker cover off. Now, luckily enough, I've managed to get this spill pipe off without breaking it, so we haven't got to replace it. Now, if we have a little look at this chain down the back here, I don't know whether you're going to be able to see it, but look at that. Can you see it? That is where your noise is coming from. Now, because I hate mess and we've got to take the EGR valve off the side of the engine and it's full of water, we've got a little drain now into our lovely little receptacle. And we've undone that little white drain on the radiator, and that water is drained out. But while that's waiting, I've undone the bottom ball joints, dry shafts, but this one is quite a little bit messy. Yeah, we're gonna have to have a little look at that. I think it's just leaking on the corner here. The sump's got to come off regardless. Now, with all that coolant dropped out, we've got no mess whatsoever, and we have removed the EGR valve, which is right by there. Now, there's lots of little nuts and bolts that you have to remove. A little tip for you: put them back in the place where they come from, and that way you're not rummaging around for nuts and bolts when you're assembling it back up. Now, we need to remove this upper timing cover, which is some 13 mils. Get yourself a little bit of cardboard, and then you can put the bolts and make a template where they go. A little bit like that. Now, that timing cover is off, and we're going to get lovely little Ben now to give it a bit of a cleaner really while I'm plodding on with stuff. Now, you can clearly see down here how much play and how much that chain has stretched. Now, I've done the easy bit, getting this far. Now we've got to get that gearbox out. Now, to do that, the subframe's got to come off, and there's two little wires that we need to undo here. Take the earth off and feed it down, undo the gear cables and treat it as if we're doing a clutch. Now, normally when I'm doing a clutch, I take the vehicle up, and then I put a transmission jack underneath the sump with a block of wood. But because we're taking the sump off, we're going to be using the engine support. Now, we've got all the, well, that engine now is hanging loose. Let's get it up and get the subframe off. And just with a little bit of magic now, that subframe is off. And I'm just waiting for Ben to give me a hand and get it down. Now, if I just go underneath here and show you something. Now, when we're moving these and taking the subframes off, the fan packs, because it relies on the subframe to hold them up, what I've done, get an exhaust hanger, you know, when you get off your new exhausts, put it through the front crossbar and through the plastic, and that will keep that in place. Right, now, I don't want to bore you doing all gearbox and clutch jobs because I've done far too many videos of that, so we've gone straight ahead now. We've removed the gearbox, clutch plate, flywheel, and that little ring there. Be extra careful with that because you don't want to be damaging that. Without that, the car will not start. Now, as you can see, we've got our lovely little oil now draining into our receptacle. We're going to go ahead now and get another piece of cardboard and remove all these bolts holding that timing cover. Right, well, I've now got the timing cover off. There are the bolts there. I'm going to show you the timing cover to start with. You can see by there, the timing chain has worn into the timing cover, but it's going to be okay. It's only cosmetic. You know, a little look now at this chain. No wonder it was making a hell of a noise. The guide at the bottom there has broke. So yeah, we're going to have to plod on now and get this sumperoonie removed. Now I've got the sumperoonie off, let's get this engine timed up. Now, on the crank here, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, there's two little dots. I have put red paint on it, and they'll line up with that pulley there. Now the crankshaft holding tool. Let me get me torturoni, whatever it shall be. Come round here. Put it on again. It goes on the crank and bolts into the timing cover like that. Now let's get this camshaft locked up. Now this pin slides through the camshaft rear cap by there, and it goes into the camshaft pulley, a little hole by there. Now what I've had to do, because this chain is at stretch, because that guide is out of the way, let me just try and show you. I've had to pull the tensioner right back, put the pin in it to hold the tensioner back, get 22mm now on the camshaft pulley. Let me try and do it without getting in the way, and get that camshaft locking pin in. You have to give it a wiggle. There we go. That is now in place. Let's take it up and get this timing chain off. With all that chain now removed, which is down by there, I've got Ben, which is just cleaning out the timing covers and the sump on one thing and another. But we're going to make all this area now look like brand new. And just like magic, all that area now is like brand new. Even the sump, bottom of the block, should I say, everything's nice and clean. The oil pickup is nice and clean as well. I've taken it off and made sure there's no bits in there. Now, right, let's concentrate on the timing chain now, the new one. It is an FAI kit that we're using. And in the kit, you get a new crankshaft oil seal, rocker cover gasket, all the guides, pulleys, tensioners, chain, fuel pump pulley, nuts and bolts. Even, in all the other kits I've used, you don't get these, and they are for the timing cover, which is kind of good. But I am waiting from Vauxhall a new gasket that goes just around there, like a figure of 8 on the block for the oil pickup. Is it? Yeah. Is it? I don't know. Or is it for the oil filter? No, it might be for the oil filter. I don't know. But anyway, let's get this timing chain on. Now, as you can see, I've got the timing chain on and everything is lined up. The gold links in the chain all go to dots on the fuel pump. Cranker, I think it's, I don't know what they call this. And there's a little dot on the camshaft at the top there, and the gold link goes by that little dot there. Now let's move around to the tensioner and why these fail. Now I do get asked all the time. Now if you have a little look at the back of the original tensioner, it hasn't got a gasket on it. Now what happens overnight, the oil flows back into the engine, and when you start up in the morning, that's where you get the and it smooths out. Once it's built its oil pressure up. But the new ones, the modified ones, they've got a little gasket in there which keeps that oil in, so you're not getting the slack overnight. Right, let's get it all on. In this job as well, what we're going to be doing is replacing the oil pump chain and sprocket. Just left now, all we've got to do is pull the pin out of the chain tensioner. Is that one? Keep them because they're always handy. And then we've got to pull the one out of the oil pump. And there we go. That now is all tensioned up. Right, let's get this sumperoonie back on now. We're going to use a little bit of BGA silicone sealant and a nice little bead all the way around, absolutely perfect. Now this rubber O-ring here, if you need it, that is the part number for it. Whenever you change it, it's always good practice just to get them replaced. Now I've got the lower timing cover on and the sump. We need to get these timing covers on. The simple reason being, because I want the sealant to go off while I'm rebuilding it up. Now this upper timing cover, when you do refit them, in the corners at the bottom, do not be afraid to put in too much sealant in it, because it can leak. If you know, you got to make sure that you're putting plenty of sealant in there, like I've put there. It looks a bit of a bugger, and yes, it is going to overfill, but where they seal around the corners here, if you don't, they will leak. Simple as that, really. Right, let's get it on. Right, now what I've done, I've taken all the timing pins out and I've put some fresh oil in it. Now with the injectors being out, what I'm going to do is got my little bar on the crank, and I'm going to wind it over lots of times, and you should hear the oil pressure build up and the tensioner going like a quick, quick sort of noise. Now, I'm just going to mount my camera now. There you go. I ain't gonna lie, I'm absolutely knackered now. But there you go. You heard the tension they're getting the oil. Now that is decent. With a little bit of magic now, we've smashed that gearbox back in. Clutch, flywheel, the usual drill. Got the A-frame off there. It's now 20 to 5. I'm gonna have to finish all this off tomorrow. I'm gonna put my tools away, have a little bit of a drink-a-rooney, and yeah, we'll get back to it in the morning. Now you're probably thinking, why is he not carrying on till 5 o'clock? The reason why I'm doing that is because every job that I need to carry on with in the morning is a time-consuming job, so I don't want to start halfway through it and then, well, that's how stuff gets left loose and forgotten about. Well, we are now into Thursday morning. Now, I come in this morning hoping, fingers crossed, that the fairies had been in and finished the job off for me. Wishful thinking, eh? But no, never mind. It's just 9 o'clock now. I've got the subframe back on, ball joints in. We're just going to finish off all the suspension stuff, drop it down, put the wheels on, and then we can finish off back at the top. Right, well, we are getting somewhere now. I've put the EGR valve on, the intake motor flap back on. I've also cleaned all the EGR pipes and blew the EGR cooler out at the same time. The amount of crap that come out of it was unreal. I'm going to just put the rocker cover on now, but before we do, we've got a brand new gasket that is going back on it. Now, I don't know if you remember from the beginning of the video, all this engine was absolutely minging, and I've done my best to give it all a bit of a cleaner-rooney. And what we used was that stuff. Oh, dreamy that is. Right, well, we are now all pretty much back together. We're just putting the injectors in, and what we've done is 4 brand new copper washer on the bottom and coated the injectors. Just a bit of preventative if they ever have to come back out again, with a little bit of liquid moly injector and glow plug grease. We're going to get these in and get them torqued up. Well, we are finally back together. It's been a bit of a long video, but never mind. Now I've wound it over on the key without the injectors unplugged, just to build the fuel rail pressure up. Now it shouldn't rattle when we go to start it. Let's put the camera there. We've got 2 choices, haven't we? It either does, or it doesn't. Plug it down now. There we have it, that car now sounds 10 times better. And just like that car now is ticking over like a little Singer sewing machine, and it is nice and quiet compared to what it was at the beginning of the video. Now, I've got some live data up. We've got engine coolant, engine RPM, and we've also got oil pressure, a healthy 1.5 to 1.8 bar at tick over, which is perfect. Now, while that's ticking over, I'm constantly going to be monitoring the live data, and I'm going to be putting all the under trays on, I'll put the wheels on, and then take it for a little bit of a test drive. But yeah, hope you've enjoyed the video, and I'll have a massive mint bank holiday weekend because we have all deserved it. Anyway, let's get it sent.